Terry Crouse has always lived in the state of Pennsylvania, and he was born in Reinholds, Pennsylvania. He was born on June 30th, 1944 in Reinholds, Pennsylvania. Terry worked as a contractor in his early years before being drafted to the military. Terry was always a hard worker, and his work ethic has helped him a lot throughout his life. He was drafted by the U.S. Army for the Vietnam War. He served from June 29, 1965 to June 29, 1967. He currently lives in Newmanstown, Pennsylvania, and still loves to work. Terry was
Terry went from living his normal daily life to serving in the Army for 2 years. He had training at the Instructed Officer School, where he learned how to use other units and learned more tactics. Terry Crouse was in the mechanized infantry, and he served in several units while in the Army. Terry went to basic training to learn how to operate all the machines that were required for the war. Terry helped the other soldiers learn how to use the units and operate them properly while in battle. He was taught how to use mechanized units and how to operate them properly and efficiently. Terry Crouse served in the Army for 2 straight years, and he ranked up to sergeant.
In the first part of his training, they were drilled for hours. They practiced on their shooting and used different kinds of rounds. One round you could see it moving through the air rather than shooting a regular round and not when. Terry Crouse's living quarters were very straight and clean. They had to have everything spotless. When it came time to clean their weapons, his platoon had to make it their most important priority to have the entire gun not have one speck of dust on it.
He worked during training and had lots of time to practice with the weapons. He says that the weapons were always sighted and always dead on accurate. The weapons were mainly very reliable because they were checked non-stop. The M14s were very trustworthy. You could drag them through the mud and sand and they would still fire. When they came out with the M16, it had to be spotless and completely clean for it to fire, rather than the M14. The equipment he used was very reliable, and the Army did not cut any corners when it came to weapons in warfare.
Well, I tell you what, the Ford I acquired was, hey, a good experience, and like I say, I think every person
They expected
should
the fullest out of all the soldiers, and Terry can honestly say that he gave his all. You had to, like I said, you have to stay straight.
The technology Terry dealt with at the time was up to date and considered new in that time period. It wasn't like nowadays when everything is done with lasers. They never had the same M14 that they had used previous because they were checked over a certain time period. The guns always had to be cleaned and the weapons had always had to be in working order, and Terry liked the reliability. Most of the guns were already sighted in, and all he had to do was aim, and it made the other soldiers in Terry's life. Everything, though, was up to date for that era and was high quality too.
He had to carry weapons like his rifle, knives, bayonet, M14, and then 45, all automatics. Yes, because you have a full pack with your sleeping bag and everything else, you had to pack at least 80 pounds, said Terry. The rifle had a sling on it to make it easier to carry. Another thing is when you were putting on your bayonet, the teacher would yell, "What's the bayonet for?" And you yelled, "To kill!" That was what the teacher wanted to hear from them, and it was a good experience for Terry. But when he got out, he was at rank E5. He wished as though he would have made a career out of it because he would have had a rank of E6 if he stayed. At the time, he didn't want to continue being in the Army, but some days he thinks he should have made a career out of it.
Carry the equipment was rough on his body because he had to carry a full pack with your sleeping bag and other things that altogether weighed 80 pounds. You also had to run with your pack on, with your rifle and everything else, if you wanted to go for your EIT badge. Terry really wanted the badge, but the weight was too much to carry and came up 2 or 3 miles short of passing. If you did pass and succeed carrying all that weight and running many miles, you were awarded the EIT badge and a nice certificate as well. He tried very hard to get the badge, but he gave his all, but it was just too difficult for him to achieve.
In basic training, Terry did a lot of marching, and every morning you had to run as well. When you ran, you had to run a mile, and it was timed mile as well. But if you didn't run a mile in the time given, you had to start all over again until you succeeded. One time, Terry was caught throwing a cigarette onto the bare ground, so his punishment was he had to bury it in the sand. He had to dig a pretty wide and deep hole, but since it was in the sand, it was difficult to make any ground because the sand kept pouring into the hole. Terry learned his lesson when he was done, but there are some who never learn their lesson. Terry mostly learned from his mistakes throughout his life, and the military helped make him a better man. When Terry got out of the service, he continued with another secular job that he found, and he still continued to serve a week or two out of the month.
All, Terry Crouse is a very good individual with a good attitude to carry things out. He is one of the most hardworking people in the world, and he is in work ethic. Terry was affected by the war in many extraordinary ways that helped make him the great man he is today, and he encourages everyone to serve in the Army. He has acquired many good traits throughout his life, and he has passed them on to others to be shared. Terry Crouse is always willing to help someone out when in need, and he is very quick to offer help. Terry looks back on his service as a sign of hard work, and he encourages everyone to serve their country proudly.